Now that we've talked about PlayStation 5 backwards compatibility for the PlayStation 4, 3, and 2, let's talk about the PS1. What will there be backwards compatibility for the PlayStation 1? I mean, the emulation software is obviously there already. You could download it on a computer right now, so it's not like they'd have to develop software emulation. They could probably just rip it off of the internet, or I mean, making their own wouldn't be that difficult. I mean, it's pretty old. It's pretty old hardware that can easily be emulated at this day and age. You know, considering how the the architecture wasn't as complex as the PS2 was. That's why the PS2 emulators having a very hard time. You know, I'm talking about the PC ones, not about Sony. Sony has an amazing PS2 emulator, but PS3 emulator would probably be more complicated to do, which I would consider to be the least likely out of the four consoles that can be backwards compatible. But I think it is very likely that we are going to have a situation where the way Sony is going to pitch the PlayStation 5, besides having all your favorite exclusives, you know, new exclusive games at E3 2019, they're gonna reveal all that stuff. It could be 2020, but it's one of those years. It's not going to be beyond. You're not going to last till 2021. It's not going to last as long as the last generation. Come on, even though these, you know, the PlayStation 4 Pro and Xbox One X are not going anywhere. They're not selling that great. So the idea that, well, the PlayStation 4 Pro and the Xbox One X came out, so that's going to increase the lifespan of the consoles. I don't think so. But, you know, if that's what you think, then fine. We'll find out soon enough, right? But here's how I think is going to be one of their biggest pitches of the console, and it's going to end up making the console sell so much. Like, it's going to be one of the biggest... it's probably going to be Sony's biggest generation. And I know that sounds like very, very speculative right now, and it sounds very like it just sounds a little fanboyish. But I'm not really a Sony fanboy. I just call it how I see it. And based off of the fact that Sony is relying heavily financially for the PlayStation brand to succeed, I think they're going to try to use every edge that they can to make the PlayStation brand successful. So, here's what I think about how Sony's gonna really market this console. They're gonna market it with different generations of gamers from the 90s, the 2000s, the 2010s, all coming together on this one platform, all being able to play their favorite games from their childhood, or in the case of the PS4, the games that you just played. So it's going to be a multi-generational console. And you're going to be able to run PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2, PlayStation 3, which might be a little bit more of a questionable prediction, but PlayStation 4. I think you're going to have all four of those generations all combining and coming together, and it's going to be a beautiful and a very successful advertising campaign for the PlayStation 5. I guarantee you, that is going to sell consoles. That is going to make consoles selling off the shelves, and is going to really, really, really be a great thing for Sony if they decide to do it. And I think that they are, only because that's exactly what Microsoft is doing right now. It's exactly what they're doing. There's no 5th generation Microsoft console, but their 6th, 7th, and 8th generation consoles will definitely be backwards compatible on their 9th gen. We know that. So for Sony not to do that would be a very big mistake, because they cannot afford, as a company, you know, Microsoft is a huge company with unlimited money. So they're fine no matter what. If they drop out of the console market tomorrow, nothing's going to happen to them. If they keep making consoles despite them not doing so great, it's also not going to hurt them. But with Sony, they depend on the PlayStation brand for their survival. The PlayStation brand is the only profitable thing. Maybe not the only. Maybe there are a few other devices that Sony makes that are able to turn a profit. But for the most part, PlayStation is Sony's bread and butter. It is the main thing that is keeping the lights on at Sony HQ and is not making Sony file for bankruptcy. So I think they're going to end up making the PlayStation 5 literally the most profitable console that they possibly can. trying to have, incredible mass market appeal, and part of that mass market appeal will be a multi-generational console. Gamers from all generations can enjoy this console because you can run every single PlayStation game. That's going to be part of it. What else they're going to do? I'm sure they'll have a few other tricks up their sleeves, but as far as, because we've been talking about backwards compatibility lately, that's a prediction I'm going to add on to my 9th generation prediction video. So this is that's what I'm predicting. I don't know if anybody else is predicting this. I know Michael Pachter and other analysts have talked about PlayStation 4 backwards compatibility, but not about PS3, and certainly not about 2 and 1. That hasn't even crossed people's minds, but I think we're going to see it. I think the PlayStation 1 backwards compatibility specifically, it would be profitable for Sony because there's a shit ton of 90s nostalgia going on right now, late 90s nostalgia specifically. And you see it with the Crash Bandicoot Remastered Collection and the Spyro Remastered Collection. They're obviously not going to remaster all PS1 games, so there's still going to be a market for... there's still going to be profitability there if they put all the PS1 games on their store. I don't think they're going to remaster A Bug's Life or anything like that. So, there's going to be some mass market appeal for that. And... they're not going to just remaster all the PS1 games. We know that. There are definitely a lot of obscure PS1 games. It's just on a tangent. It's kind of interesting that out of all the games they decide to, out of all the PS1 games they decide to remaster, recently I'm not talking about they as in Sony, but I'm talking about the game publishers. They're deciding to remaster Crash Bandicoot and Spyro, which, obviously are going to print them a shit ton of money, but Grim Fandango? Huh? That was just a very obscure PlayStation 1 game. The fact that they decide to remaster that game still puzzles me to this day. But there are plenty of more obscure PS1 games that weren't as lucky as Grim Fandango and didn't get that remaster. So I think we're going to see the BC come to the PS5 for the PlayStation 1 and also on all other PlayStation generations.